before I could go start Okta, I had to make a PowerPoint presentation to her that convinced her of my case that it was a good idea to start this company. And the title of the presentation was Why I'm Not Crazy. Talk about it a lot. And you guys know you've done it, right?
Why do you think OpenAI chose Okta?
It's very simple.
はい、皆さんこんにちは。ピボットの竹下です。注目の起業家の話を深掘りするピボットセッション始まります。今日はですね、アイデンティティ管理サービスを提供するOktaの提供でお送りします。Oktaはですね、本当に私も使ってたんですけど、便利なサービスで、皆さんいろいろ仕事でスラックとかズームとかいろいろ使うと思うんですけど、いちいちパスワードをログインしなくてもいい、本当一元管理できる、新しい時代のですね、アイデンティティ管理サービスです。今日はこのOktaのコーファウンダーで CEO のトッド・マッキノンさんにわざわざアメリカから来ていただいて、直接話を聞いていきたいと思います。ポイント2つありまして、1つはですね、トッドさんはパスワードがない世界というのを構想しているんですね。果たしてそれってどういう世界なのかということを深掘りする。そして2つ目、やはりこのデジタルアイデンティティのはこれから本当に大事なキーワードになってきますので、特にセキュリティ面とかですね、このデジタルアイデンティティ時代どう生き残ればいいのかということを聞いてみたいと思います。では早速、トッドさんをお呼びしましょう。So Todd McKinnon, CEO of Okta, welcome to Pivot.Thanks
for having me, Ryan. It's great to be on Pivot here.
Great. So you're here in Japan. Is it your first time visiting Japan?
It is. It's my first time to Japan. It's a beautiful place. I really love it here.
So what's the purpose of your visit?
Well, the Japanese market is a very important market for Okta. We provide our services to companies of all sizes, and we want to do that globally as we are on our vision to free everyone to safely use any technology. And there's many great companies in Japan, and it's a great market opportunity for us and our team and our products.
Wow. I heard OpenAI, the ChatGPT, is using your service. Are there more companies starting to use your Okta and other services?
And we have around the world, we have over 17,000 companies that use our two main products, which is our Workforce Identity Cloud and our Customer Identity Cloud. OpenAI uses our Customer Identity Cloud as the login and the password for ChatGPT. So that's a pretty exciting customer that we have.
So before going into details, I want to talk about passwordless community because I hate passwords.
But You're not the only one, man. You're not the only one.
But before that, tell me about your story. You founded Okta in 2009, and I recall that it was a very tough time to start a business because we were still in the echoes of the financial crisis. Why did you start your business?
Well, I think it's probably a lot of your viewers are entrepreneurs or working at small companies. Pivot itself is a newer company that's trying to create something new. And all of the opportunities for new companies come from big transition, whether it's in the media landscape or in my case, it was a technology shift between companies using software that they ran and servers that they ran in their own data center to moving to using cloud services offered over the internet. And that was, now it's more prevalent than it was 14 years ago. But at the time, I was running engineering at Salesforce, a prominent cloud computing company. And I could see firsthand how important of a technological trend this was going to be, delivering services to enterprises and users from the cloud. And I saw that technological transition, and I got really excited about the opportunity to build a new piece of infrastructure that would be required in this new world of IT where everything was from applications to security to infrastructure, compute infrastructure was going to be offered as a cloud service. And I got really excited about the opportunity to create a new company in that environment. But as you mentioned, this is 2000. This is 2009.
It's the worst time.
And the economy in the last year or so has reminded me a little bit of that time. It's different for many reasons, but that was a different economic time. We were coming off of the great financial crisis where we forget it now, but we thought major banks were going to fail. In fact, Lehman Brothers failed, and there were other big insurance companies that were close to failing. And it was a pretty scary time. And I would say the hardest part about starting Okta wasn't necessarily the technological trends or those types of things. It was more convincing my wife that I should quit my well-paying, stable job at Salesforce and go off and start something new. But it was, and so I actually, I told her I was going to do it, and she looked at me and she said, "You're crazy. Don't do it." So I had to, before I could go start Okta, I had to make a PowerPoint presentation to her that convinced her of my case that it was a good idea to start this company. And the title of the presentation was "Why I'm Not Crazy." And
you literally wrote that?
I literally wrote that. Yeah, and it was she's a very thoughtful and logical person, and it had to lay out my arguments as to why it was a good opportunity, and it if we were able to make it work, it could be a long-term successful company. But if you look at the PowerPoint today, you can find it online. You can search for it. And if you look at it, it's pretty funny because the first part outlines how it's a big opportunity and it's going to be potential to make a big company. But then the last 9 pages of the PowerPoint are all about basically what I was going to do when Okta didn't work out. So I wasn't, I was making sure I was covering my downside as well in the PowerPoint.
So could you give any advice for our audience? Because a lot of our audience they want to start their own company or they want to switch jobs. Do you have any advice for them who are kind of afraid? Because it's kind of scary in Japan. It's not usual in Japan yet to start a company or go to startup. Do you have any advice for our audience?
Well, I think it is. I think the reason why it's people have this aspiration and this dream to do it is because they see the companies that are successful. They see the entrepreneurs that are able to make it work. But the reality is that a lot of companies don't work. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that you have to be able to take a leap and be able to handle the stress of not knowing if it's going to work out. And I think that's a reason a lot of companies aren't able to make it. They can't deal with the stress of not knowing it's going to work out. And it's just also hard to create something new.
Right.
But I will say that the main thing that is required for you to do it is you have to actually do it. And so people talk about it a lot and think about it a lot, and you guys know you've done it, right? And now no one knows what the future holds, but you're infinitely more likely to succeed now than if you never tried.
Right.
And the other thing I would say is make sure that the big technology trend that you're betting on, pick that carefully. So in our case, it was cloud computing. In your case, it's media moving to more video and business content on video. So pick a powerful trend and then be very consistent and follow that trend and don't compromise. But be willing on short-term tactical things. Be willing to change the tactics. You might want to pivot and do YouTube or not YouTube or app or not an app. In our case, we started actually building a different service than Okta, and we only started doing identity management after talking to a bunch of customers. So the long-term technical trend, we were consistent on leverage the cloud. Cloud is going to be a big deal, but actually the tactics on what we did to take advantage of that, we were flexible and iterated and pivoted to some degree during the early days of Okta.
Do you think right now is the right time to start something new? Because there are some similarities compared to maybe 2008 or 2009. Do you think right now is the right timing?
I think there's no right time. I think if it was that's not how it works. I mean, there's a lot of good fortune. There's a lot of timing. There's a lot of factors that you can't foresee. So I think there's no right time and wrong time. I will say that there's a lot of good reason. There's a lot of things harder about starting a company now. I think it's probably harder to raise venture capital if you're going to raise venture capital. But there's a lot of good things too. It's probably not as hard to hire people. It's probably not as hard to find people to work with you. And prices on things like real estate is probably lower than it was, and so the costs are probably cheaper than they were 4 or 5 years ago. But I think the big things are: do you get the timing right in terms of the technical trends? Do you get the right team? Do you execute? And frankly, you have to have a lot of things go right for you. And that sometimes it comes down to luck, but you have to start and work hard to make that luck happen.
Great. I think your words inspired a lot of our audience. Thank you so much.
That makes me feel good. Thank you.
So let's talk about passwordless world. So before that, could you briefly explain about the following: Workforce Identity Cloud and Customer Identity Cloud for users who are not familiar with?
So Okta is I mentioned our vision is to free everyone to safely use technology. And we believe that if an organization uses the right platform for their identity management, that they are freed to use a choice of technology, whether that's for their employees or that's for their customers, to build the right apps and websites and digital technology for their customers and to offer the right tools and technologies to their workforce. That's the vision of our company, and that's how we're going about executing that vision. Our products are Workforce Identity Cloud, which is it's login and passwords and multi-factor authentication for employees at a company. Single sign-on for employees at a company. Customer Identity Cloud it's similar, except it's instead of for our customers' employees, it's registration, login, sign in for our customers' customers. So an example of this is a Japanese company, JCB.
Yes.
And JCB uses Okta for their employees. So when their employees come to work and they log into their email and their collaboration systems, Okta logs them in, gives them a passwordless experience into their work applications, lets their IT teams make sure that it's the right employees and they have access to the right things. And as they join the company, leave the company, and change jobs and roles, they have the right access. So it's really a IT management and a security thing. So no one has the access to the wrong information, and no one can get into the company as if they were an employee. It's a security and also an ease of use thing. So JCB also uses Okta for their customers to log in to their mobile app and their website. Yeah. So when you log into the JCB app or the JCB website, that happens through Okta. That's our customer identity cloud, and we make it so that JCB can focus on financial services and not on having to write code or capabilities for checking passwords or registering users. And so it's a tool in their toolbox to make a better digital experience.
People having more efficiency on work, because instead of coming to your office and trying to figure out your password, they can just log into Okta and start their jobs. Do you think any improvement in work efficiency?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Both just in terms of time and also just like clarity of mind.
Yes.
Just easy.
Yes.
I mean, I use Okta at work, and I can't imagine not using it. I just, I have my Mac and I just touch it and I read all my applications, and we're secure. We know it's not going to get phished or broken into. So it's a great experience as an employee.
So I hate passwords, and I read your open letter.
Yeah.
And is there like can you point to a year when you can say that from this year there will be no passwords in the world?
Well, I think there's, I divided into work, employees at work, and then consumers. So customers logging into companies' mobile apps and websites. I think at work we're there now. I mean, Okta today can remove all passwords from work for companies.
Yes.
And this is essentially, passwords are really getting rid of passwords is really about standards and compatibility and connecting all the systems together. So passwords are kind of a shortcut to connect you with everything you want to do.
Yes.
And by shortcut, I mean we have these, very expensive, powerful devices, whether it's phones or computers, and we have these amazing services in the data center and the cloud. And it's kind of ironic that the only way that they can tell who it is, Ryan or Todd, and what service is by some character you type in. We have massive computers. It's like a massive processing power. So why is that? Well, the reason is because it's not integrated. It's the phone and the operating system on the phone and the operating system on your computer and the application or the app on the back end can't get connected on how to identify who you are. So we default to this long string of characters you have to. So at work, what Okta does is it integrates that together. We know about the device, we know about the phone, we know about the cloud services your company uses, and we can integrate with the fingerprint reader or the Windows Hello or the Touch ID on a Mac, and we have over 7,000 integrations in what we call our Okta integration network, and we can conveniently map that to all these applications. So we do that automatically. So we don't require you to to type in a password. So so at work, we're there today. Now, a lot of companies don't know about this, and we got to get the word out, and we have to make sure everyone understands this is possible. There's no reason why an employee should have a password today at work. On the consumer side, it's a little bit more of a longer term thing, because you have the diversity of websites and different social media platforms and different computing platforms. It's going to take a longer to get them all speaking the same language to get rid of the passwords. But the industry is making progress. There's something called a technical thing called web auth-in, which is a standard way for web browsers to share biometrics from operating systems in a seamless way. There's something called the FIDO Alliance. I know these are very kind of in the weeds technical things, but they're standards that are making all these websites and all these devices, no matter which operating system or which mobile app store, to be able to be integrated and share this information and not require the passwords. So we're working on that side too. I mean, if you, like we mentioned the example of JCB or ChatGPT, these are consumer-facing products that use Okta's customer identity cloud. These developers are building these things, and the developers that are building these things, they want to get rid of passwords too, but they don't want to have to think about all of the different operating systems and computers and how to integrate to FIDO and web auth-in. Like, what is web auth-in? Who even knows, right? So by using the customer identity cloud, we take that complexity away, and they can just know that we've mapped it to all of those different protocols, and they can just offer their users passwordless login. But I think it's just there's on the consumer side, there's just it's a little bit more of a challenge, because you don't go to one IT department and have them connect Okta to all the systems. You have to go to every website and every person that's building digital technology, which I think is a little bit of a longer.
How can you solve that problem?
Well, I think there's two ways. One simple way is that everyone could use Okta's customer identity cloud, and that, along with the standards that the browsers and that the the Mac and Windows and the PC operating systems are supporting, that would go a long way. But the good news is that as more of these standards are being popular, more people are just supporting them. Just within their application, just by writing their own code. We don't advise that. We think you should use Okta, so you don't have to write the code. But more people are doing it, and the big companies like Google are supporting something called passkeys to get to this passwordless future. So I think we've made more progress in the last year, especially on the work side, than we have in a long time. So I'm very excited about this.
You made a good point about we're in 2020s, but we're still using random alphabets and numbers to identify ourselves. That kind of weird. Do you think, why are we still using passwords? Do you think it's kind of inertia?
I think it's just it's the thing that it's not great for the end users, but it's the most portable and thing that people creating operating systems and creating websites know will work everywhere. People, when you create a website, you want Pivot to be read by everyone. You don't want to be like, oh, it can only be read by people that have this protocol on their computer. And you know that developers know that the password is the least common denominator. They know that everyone can do it. It's got all kinds of problems. It's the bad guys know it. It's a weak point, and they know people reuse passwords and know they can guess them and they can phish them. But what's happening with some of the standardization is that I think that the standards, like I mentioned, like web auth-in and passkeys, they're being adopted so widely that we're on the cusp of getting the best of both worlds, having it be everywhere and having it be more secure and easier to use than a password.
Yeah, I agree. So in order to create a world without passwords, do you think it's important for a company like Okta to be like a company independent and respects neutrality like Okta? Do you think that's an important factor?
Well, I mentioned we want to free everyone to safely use any technology, and we believe that identity is so important that it's really probably not good for companies or for end users to have it be controlled by a company that also is trying to sell you advertisements or a certain application or a certain type of infrastructure. We think that companies and people should have choice about which services they use and what tools and technologies they adopt for their employees. And by using an identity platform that can connect to everything, we give you that choice. But at the same time, solving these problems, taking away passwords, making it easy for end users, making it secure, making it manageable, giving your security and IT folks a chance to have visibility into what's going on and make sure they handle risks. So that's how we see it, and that's why we're very focused on identity, whether it's customer or workforce, and then connecting to everything, whether it's no matter what operating system or what device or what collaboration platform or what customer management system, we want to connect to it all.
Let's talk about OpenAI. Why do you think OpenAI chose Okta?
It's very simple. It was early in the product development cycle, and we have by far the best developer experience of an identity platform. So their developers were starting to build new products and what eventually would become ChatGPT, and they found an identity cloud that had a very simple API. It did exactly what the developers needed to do, didn't do any more, didn't get their way, let them focus on the amazing technology they were building, and took away some of this really work that they didn't want to have to do, which was registering users, logging in users, making sure they checked the authentication and so forth. So it's all about that developer experience, and that's, talk about entrepreneurship, that's more important than ever. So all of these people that are going to start companies, and it's going to have something to do likely with software, and they're going to have some kind of mobile app and some kind of website, and it's going to have identity. And we believe that people shouldn't spend their time developing that themselves. That's recreating the wheel, and there's all these reasons why they should use something like our customer identity cloud, and that was the case at OpenAI.
I'm just curious, Todd. So, what's your take on AI? What's your predictions? Yeah, what do you think will happen in the future?
I think that its predictions are dangerous.
Okay.
I think specific predictions are dangerous. So I talked earlier about betting on cloud computing. That's a prediction, but it's a broad prediction. It's not like saying, by 2019, cloud computing will be this number. It's a broad prediction.
Yes.
So I think similarly about AI, I think AI is and specifically what people are talking about now, which is the large language models and generative AI. I think they're profound breakthroughs, and it's both just because of algorithmic advancements and actually the computer science of the algorithms, how these large language and generative models work. It's also computing. I think we just have more GPUs and more big farms of servers than we've ever had, which is kind of an obvious thing, but it's many decades of computing compounding. It really adds up. And then the third thing is that we have data. So ChatGPT was trained on the internet.
Yes.
And it was trained on multiple decades of the internet. That's never been possible before.
Right.
There's never been multiple decades of the internet out there for train something. So with data and compute and algorithmic advance, it's a breakthrough, and it's very real and it's very profound. And I think I have an open mind about it, both in terms of what it means for the technology industry. I think what it means for Okta in terms of our products. We use machine learning and AI in our products to detect threats and to help protect our users. But I think there's going to be many more opportunities to use it in the product, whether it's how you rethink how your customer experience can be amazing based on large language models and ChatGPT. Just an example is configuring our products it's important to get it right. You have to set up policies and say who can connect from where and what the security rules are. We had a hackathon that experimented with using ChatGPT to look at a bunch of policies and recommend how they should be configured.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, so you can imagine just instead of hoisting it on some IT person to say, hey, set this up, instead say okay, here's 3 configurations that were suggested, which one do you like? So I think both in terms of the impacts overall in the tech industry, in the world, impact for our company, in, the products, and also how we run our company, I'm really excited about it.
So if Okta were to create a passwordless world, do you think the world of digital and AI and the real world would merge? Because people won't even realize if you're logging into a service. Do you think the two worlds will merge together?
I think one thing that's going to be interesting is, we've seen this over and over the last 10 years, is that identity keeps becoming more important.
Yes.
So think about the value of having validation that there's a real person behind an AI bot versus it's an AI bot. So there's maybe some value in that, like identifying what's real and what's not. Just kind of like online, social media, you want to identify what is a real account and what's not. So that's an identity problem. So I think one of the things we've seen over and over is identity continues to be a big deal, and we're going to make sure we're helping users and companies take advantage of the new technology no matter which direction it goes.
Interesting. So the second part of our discussion, we want to talk about what kind of strategy Japanese companies can take, because a lot of our users work for a Japanese company. And there's an example of Mercari here. It's a big, huge marketplace app in Japan. And they're using Okta. And also, they have like 2,000 employees. And they used to have like 400 applications, SaaS applications. But after they link to Okta, their work efficiency or the work cost reduced to 1/5. So do you think a lot of Japanese users starting to connect to Okta?
It's really interesting the numbers you just said, because a lot of people, unless you are a IT administrator, you don't understand this.
You're right.
I mean, but if you are an IT administrator, it's the most obvious thing in the world.
Yes.
So you have hundreds of people or thousands of people in the case of Mercari at the company, and then you think, oh, how many applications do they have? And 400 it's typical.
It's typical, yes.
In fact, we have a report we publish that's called Businesses at Work that says the average number of apps for a big company is at least 400 or more. So
it seems a lot, but it's normal, yeah.
Yeah, and these and it's not like in your personal life where you just kind of register and you remember where it is and you have the app on your phone. Someone has to make sure that all of the users are actually, the accounts are created in all these apps. So 2,000 users times 4,000 apps, and making sure that the right users, because not all 2,000 go into all 400. So you have to get that mapping right, and that's complex. And then it changes over time because people are joining and leaving. So companies have a choice. They can hire people to just do that work, creating accounts, managing accounts, or they can automate it with Okta. And we think automation is the better path. It saves money, it saves time, it's more accurate, it's more secure, and it makes those people that were doing the work that could be automated can focus on something else. They can focus on something that actually provides more value for
more productive, more creative. Yeah,
it's a big deal. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out how to take their people in their organization and make them the most productive,
right?
And how they can use automation and how they can and this is getting back to your conversation about AI. Everyone is worried about AI. What does it mean for taking jobs? And I strongly believe that AI will move people to more productive things. And the people that were doing things that could be done with AI, it's great. It's like, okay, there's going to be some transition, but they can move and create more value, and there's lots of work to be done.
And I heard that Mercari is using Okta Workforce Identity Cloud, and they're linking to their own HR system. So for users to implement Okta, it's easy to link to their own original system. Is it that easy?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been really focused on and made a name for is just having things that were pre-integrated, meaning that you buy Okta and you just tell it what applications you have, and it connects to them in a way that doesn't require you to do a bunch of work. So instead of requiring your team to write a bunch of scripts and do things that take a lot of time, we take that burden away, whether it's an HR system. Because remember that for a company, the system of record for who's hired and what job they have, that's an HR system.
Yes.
Whether that's a big company, an HR product from a big company like Oracle or SAP, or from a small company, that for a more of a startup company, there's an HR system that can drive some of that.
And
process.
It keeps track of them. For instance, if someone leaves a department and goes to another department, or they leave their job, or a new person joins the company, it kind of keeps track.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of companies, I don't know what Pivot does, but when we're new and small, we just kind of do it manually.
Yes.
And then at some point you have 100 people or 200 people, and all of a sudden it's like you're in that zone of it's too complex and you need to automate it. So.
We're still 20 or 30 people, so we all manual.
You won't be for long. You're in manual land still.
But maybe next year I'll know what you meant.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're here in Japan. What's your pitch? What's your advice for Japanese companies? How they can survive this world, especially using Okta and the world of digital identity?
Well, it depends on. It's pretty different based on the size and the scale. If it's a larger, more traditional company, it's just making sure they understand the a lot of times there's a resistance to change. So just trying to make sure they understand the benefits of change and the benefits of adopting some of this cloud technology and things like Okta to make things more secure and manageable. And then it's also making sure that they understand that this concept of identity, it's connecting people with technology. If people get it, a lot of times they get it on the workforce side.
Yes.
So they think, I used to use a directory server or Windows Active Directory, and so they kind of understand that there's a better way to do that. But then they don't understand that there's a whole other opportunity on customer identity to make their customer experience better and make that more secure and that easier for their developers. So I talk about that. And then the other thing is just the reiterating, and this is something that's important to me and our company is how important the Japanese market is and the Asia Pacific market. So we're a global company, and we get about there's roughly about our goal over time is to get over 30% of our revenue outside of North America, and Asia Pacific is going to be a big part of that. And so we're really investing in the team and the making sure all the operations of the company in Japan and Asia Pacific region are scaling up, and it's a big part of my message is to reiterate our focus and our priority on that.
And why is Japan so important for Okta?
There's one reason is just that it's a big economy, third biggest economy in the world, and that once you invest in the localization and all of the things that make the product really relevant in terms of the Japanese market and Japanese speakers, it's just a big financial opportunity.
Absolutely.
But there's another important thing, which is Japanese has, I think, when we talk about, I've talked a lot about explaining the concept of identity and the success customers can have with identity.
Yes.
And there's no better way to do that in the world to have big companies that are successful or government agencies, because every company looks at these big companies as if it works for NTT,
yes,
if it works for all these JCB, all these other companies, it could work for me. And Japan has 200 of the biggest companies in the world.
Yes,
and also big presence for other global companies that aren't Japanese companies. So that being successful here for that reason is also important to just set the standard and set the example beyond just the financial opportunity from a big economy.
So we talked about Mercari and JTB. Could you give us any other examples? It doesn't have to be a Japanese company, but any company that used Okta and kind of improved your efficiency or something.
Well, I mentioned NTT.
NTT, yes.
Yeah, it's a big customer of Okta. We've worked with them for several years, and it's really about supporting it's of course ease of use of their employees, but it's really about security. So they are moving toward a model where a big part of NTT, especially in the United States, it's a consulting. It's like a IT services, consulting company. So imagine what they're doing is they're working everywhere. They're working on the client's network. They're working at home. They're working at their offices, and supporting that is quite a challenge because all of the security technology for the last couple of decades was assume that you were sitting in the VPN in your office, or you did a remote VPN, if you were at home, and that's how you had to log in. But now this world we're in, where people want to work from anywhere, and they're on multiple devices, and they're not always Windows, and that requires a new security model, and identity is at the heart of that. And NTT is standardized on Okta, and they've standardized on having other security tools integrated to Okta. So Okta is a way to coordinate whether if they detect that there's some malware on the computer, they shut off all the logins. And so it's really, Okta is like the nerve center of their security program.
So we need to wrap up. So do you have any like final comments for our audience and anything you want to add to our conversation?
I think there's a lot of change in the world. We talked about AI, we talked about cloud computing, we talked about the economy many years ago, but the economy now, it's, people are a little bit more unsure about the economy than they were 2 years ago. But I would say that there's also more opportunity than ever, whether it's AI and some of the breakthroughs there, and a lot of things just when you're talking about media, you're talking about big companies, there's a lot of opportunities to bring some of these organizations more forward into more modern technology, make them more productive, and it's sometimes it can be a little daunting, but it's a really exciting opportunity for us all to be in.
So thank you, Todd. We enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.